It's really appropriate that we be talking about issues around sustainability, issues around technology and innovation around housing, and then really in the context of this pivot day, talking about the intersection of art in the supply of housing and continuation of housing. What is the role of technology and innovation in the provision of sustainable housing in our communities?
We have a lot of work to do, and I don't think we're going to get very far without adapting to new technologies, and very quickly.
Sustainable design and sustainable housing and just housing requires some data to back up some of the decisions that we need to make as governments, as professionals, and even as communities in the voting process.
When there is building science innovation coming from Germany and Austria, from certain corners of the world, when cities can pick it up and pioneer the adoption and demonstration of technologies, that can really be a catalyst for the private sector to implement new ways of delivering housing.
How do we make the use of technology and innovation and sustainability really the only choice?
Part of our role at the Association for Home Building is to be a little bit in that education space. So we run workshops with different builders and developers. We run tours to European cities who are doing kind of more of the passive house design as a more educational role, as well as kind of bringing people together and sharing those ideas.
We have 2 communities we're revitalizing. So these are entire blocks and neighborhoods that we're reimagining and quadrupling the number of units there, doubling affordability in some cases. But what's really interesting is we've insisted on a high performance approach for our projects, but then the private sector partners are learning on our projects, so we sort of de-risk the learning process.
It is easy for not-for-profits and for municipalities and for city housing to think in the lens of longevity, of an asset that they're going to keep for a very long time. And it is really bringing that frame of thinking to private developers who are not necessarily holding on to these assets.
I was with a number of people at the college, and we met with a startup firm based out of Boston who apparently has come up with a formula to create emissions-free concrete. And imagine just how much concrete we use for infrastructure, for buildings, and so on. And they feel like they've figured out that they've tapped into a way to do it emissions-free purely based on the way that they produce it. And some of the things that they were talking about were not just the fact that it would be environmentally sustainable in the longer term, but just even some of the additional incentives that come out of it.
We now have in Hamilton the largest tower retrofit to a high performance standard in the world. So this is in the north end of Hamilton. We've had folks in the last year since it's been complete come from like 13 different regions of the world to tour this thing. So this is just one example of local innovation.
This comes down to a policy discussion. It's not even about how we build, because that is a discussion that's already been had. We know what is the right way to build, but it is how do we get there and how do we get there fast? And I'm not entirely sure that there's any sort of plan.
Personally, I'm a renter, and I know that like the minute my landlords decide to sell the house, I'm going to have to find somewhere else to live. And so with kind of rent prices the way they are, that is going to be a significant challenge, and you start to look kind of further out and you're like, okay, my family has moved all across Ontario, no one's left in Hamilton anymore from the younger generation. And so that's like part of, I guess, the impacts of the situation we're in.
In our new build projects, so we've got six new mid-rise and high-rise we're building out right now, all to a high-performance standard. And we're actually believing at this point, now that we're seeing tenders come in, that there's no premium to go to high performance. If you bake in high-quality systems for comfort, for increased air quality, for energy performance, bake all that in the design stage, it's not necessarily a more expensive project.
One of the home builders that we work with, actually, because he believes in the product that he's putting out, in his brochures, he will literally put in wall sections to show and explain why this is a good investment for you, for your future, and for your comfort down the line. So marketing absolutely comes into play.
We know we have a retiring workforce, and we know we can't get enough skilled trades and labor and professionals to build kind of what we need to build down the road. And so that's where this education piece, it's not just on people working in the current market, it is people that will be entering the market.
After everyone gets used to building right, those premiums are going to come down because it just becomes the way you do things. Because the way we typically did things was not right, but it was easy.
We also have a kind of net zero council of builders and developers that are working on projects that are net zero certified, and that is kind of like an area of training and development.
Experientially, if folks have been in, dense 3 to 5 story communities in Europe, elsewhere, I mean, there's a vibrancy in those neighborhoods, the interconnectivity. I mean, we all can appreciate those things, and I feel like we have a problem imagining our society becoming more that way.
There needs to be a variety of solutions, and those solutions absolutely need to be both affordable and sustainable. I think those are two things that should not be negotiable anymore.
We are talking about creating community through the technology and the arts. We haven't addressed the arts. What is the role of art in sustainable housing? Yeah.
It's not about the role of arts in sustainable housing. It's about the role of art in our community. It has to be, artists need to be able to live in a community. They need to be able to contribute to it. We need to think about housing for our artists in order to create. It's very difficult to exist as an artist in this economic climate.